Ever wonder how the very first humans figured out how to make babies without a single sex ed class or Google search? It's not like cavemen had Netflix and chill, so how did they actually get the ball rolling? Welcome to the ultimate awkward backstory of human survival. Imagine being an early human roaming the wilderness, completely clueless about biology, anatomy, or reproductive health. You just exist. But then, a weird feeling hits you. Nobody taught them what to do. There were no manuals buried in the dirt. Yet, their bodies knew exactly what to do when the time came. Our ancestors didn't need a textbook because evolution gave them the ultimate cheat code, basic survival instinct. Just like breathing, eating, or running away from a saber-toothed tiger, the urge to reproduce was hardwired directly into their primitive brains. It was raw biology. Think about your pets. Nobody sits down with a golden retriever to explain the birds and the bees, yet nature finds a way every single time. For early humans, hormones were doing 90% of the heavy lifting. Puberty would hit, chemical signals would flood their bodies, and suddenly everyone started looking a whole lot more attractive. It was absolute chaos. Pheromones played a massive role too. These are invisible chemical scents that animals, including humans, release to signal that they are ready to mate. So, even if they couldn't explain the science, their noses knew exactly what was up. But wait, how did they know the actual logistics of the act? This is where observation comes in. Early humans lived outside. They spent their entire lives surrounded by wild animals doing it constantly. They watched deer, birds, and mammoths, realizing pretty quickly that physical intimacy was a universal law of nature. It was basically live-action educational television. They saw that life creates life. If the goats were doing it, and the mammoths were doing it, it only made sense for humans to try it too. Then came trial and error. Let's be real for a second. There was probably a lot of awkward fumbling, confusing moments, and accidental discoveries in those dark caves. They had to figure out the angles, the timing, and what goes where without any guidance. It was pure experimentation. But nature had one more genius trick up its sleeve to guarantee our species survived. Pleasure. Evolution made sure that reproduction felt incredibly good. If it was painful or boring, early humans would have just stayed on opposite sides of the cave and gone to sleep. Instead, the brain rewarded them with a massive rush of dopamine. They didn't need to know it made babies. They just knew they liked it. In fact, for a very long time, early humans had absolutely no idea that sex and pregnancy were even connected. Think about it. A woman gets pregnant, and a baby arrives 9 whole months later. To a caveman, that timeline makes zero sense. They probably thought babies were caused by a magical spirit, a weird phase of the moon, or eating too many berries. Connecting an action today to a consequence 9 months from now takes advanced abstract thinking. So they just kept doing what felt good, and babies kept popping out as a surprise bonus. Imagine the sheer shock of the first dad when he realized he played a part in this. He probably just wanted a snack. Talk about a plot twist. As human brains grew larger, our social structures started to evolve as well. We went from random encounters to forming tribes, bonds, and eventually, early partnerships. Protection became a team sport. A pregnant woman or a newborn baby wouldn't survive long against predators without a strong tribe looking out for them. So, emotional connection and teamwork became just as important as the physical act itself. It was all about survival. Those who had the strongest urge to reproduce passed their genes down to the next generation. The ones who didn't care? Well, their family trees ended right then and there. Natural selection basically filtered out anyone who wasn't interested in keeping the human race alive. You are here today because your ancestors were incredibly good at following their gut instincts. Every single one of them figured it out. Through ice ages, famines, and dangerous predators, the spark of life kept burning. It is honestly a miracle we made it this far. Eventually, language developed, and humans could finally talk about what was happening. Older generations could pass down wisdom, tips, and warnings to the younger crowd. The very first sex education classes were just stories told around a campfire. Imagine that conversation. It was probably just as cringy back then as it is in middle school today. But it worked. From simple instincts to complex civilizations, we have come an incredibly long way. Today, we have apps, doctors, and libraries of information to explain every single detail of human anatomy. But beneath all our modern technology, we are still driven by those same ancient biological urges. We are still just mammals. So the next time you think about how complicated modern dating is, just remember your caveman ancestors. They didn't have dating apps. They didn't worry about sending the perfect text message or finding the right outfit. They just listened to nature, trusted their bodies, and kept the human story going. It was simple, messy, and beautifully effective. It is a lineage of unbroken success stretching back millions of years. So give credit where credit is due. Our ancestors might not have known the science, but they definitely understood the assignment. And that is how we all got here.